Welcome to the Slimline Sling sewing pattern, Sew Along. I'm starting off with talking about the materials that you will need for this pattern. First, you will need your exterior fabric, and the pattern tells you the exact amount you need for each size. But for your exterior fabric, you will want to have something that wears well over time. I recommend thin vinyls, canvas, upholstery fabric, or something similar. You can use something like waterproof canvas. I did a couple versions with that, but I do find that it can be a little stiffer, and since this is a bag that you want to kind of cradle your body, the waterproof canvas doesn't always work as well, especially if it's combined with the binding version. And then it's just a little thick, though this is the small size, and it's probably less of an issue with the larger sizes. But I would just be cautious with waterproof canvas. For your lining fabric, I think for all three of these, I used quilting cotton on the inside. I did one version with of course my brain just left, with ripstop nylon, but I found that it does make for a very crunchy bag. However, it is lightweight, and that is nice. You will need woven fusible interfacing. You'll use that on the back of all of your exterior and lining pieces, unless you're using a fabric that does not need interfacing. I did not interface the vinyl. I don't think I interfaced this upholstery fabric, but I did interface my canvas. You need a small amount of fusible fleece interfacing, and that is for your straps. Both of your strap pieces are interfaced with fusible fleece. However, if you have a fabric that can't be fused, or if you don't have fleece or don't like fleece, you can also use a piece of foam. So this version uses a piece of foam instead of 2 pieces of fusible fleece. And if you have a very thick fabric, you can probably get away without any interfacing there at all. I have one vinyl version that, of course, I don't have, that I didn't use any interfacing here for the strap, and it works just fine. And you will need a small amount of stiff interfacing just for the flap. I use Decoville. You can use Pellon 926. You can use Peltex, Timtex, anything like that. It's just for the flap. And then what I do recommend is if you're using a thinner fabric here for the cell phone pocket, it's easy to have it collapse in on itself if it's not a very thick fabric, rather than stay open. So if you have a thinner fabric like this canvas, I have a strip of the Decoville right here, and it keeps it open nicely for your pocket. Otherwise, you'll just need a little square of it for the magnet. For webbing, you can use cotton webbing, nylon webbing, polypropylene. I have 3 different types of webbing here, 3 different thicknesses. This thin stuff I got on Amazon is the absolute easiest to sew over, and I have a domestic machine, not an industrial, so that's important. This thick nylon stuff that I got was very difficult to sew, and this was about somewhere in the middle. This is about like a seatbelt. You will need about a yard of webbing for the kids version and 1.5 for the adult versions. Let's see, you need your zippers. You can use either zippers or zipper tape. You can get by with about under a yard for all 3 sizes of zipper tape. And I give instructions in the pattern both on zipper tape and on using closed end zippers. But you most likely are going to have to cut your closed end zippers to a different length. So either zipper tape or closed end zippers, and you'll need 3 of them, and the sizes are given in the pattern. And if you have zipper tape, you'll need 3 zipper pulls. For your magnetic snap, I do recommend a fairly small snap for this pattern. This is a 10mm snap, and I like to have a small snap like that if it's going to be near my cell phone. However, with thicker fabric, you might want a larger size. So this is a 14mm but I do always like to be careful with anything that's going to be close to a cell phone. So that's why I chose a little snap to recommend. I think this one is also, yeah, this is also the 10mm snap. And you will need your two rectangle plastic rings, the same width as your webbing. So you'll need one for each side. Can you use metal rings? Certainly. Typically people use plastic rings with webbing, but you can definitely use metal rings. You can also, I forgot to mention this, if you don't want to use webbing or don't have webbing, you can definitely use fabric. You will just have to cut fabric straps that are the same length as your webbing. My recommendation is that you cut your fabric 4 times the width of the strap, fold it in again, and then you can use metal rectangle rings as well. And metal slider. You will need 1 slider, same width as your webbing, same width as your rings. And if there are 2 versions of this, the bound version, let's see, the bound version, and you can see this binding, and the birthed version, which has a slightly different zipper on the top. If you are doing the binding, you'll need about 1.5 yards of either double fold bias tape, where you can use handmade or store-bought, or what I use for this pattern is a 1 to 1 1/8 inch wide strip of waterproof canvas, and I just used that all the way around instead of bias tape, and that works pretty well. In addition, you'll want a seam ripper, a fabric pen, sewing clips, a lighter for the ends of the webbing, and you might want double-sided tape especially for this back zipper. And that is all you'll need for this pattern.